Okay, hi everyone. I hope everyone's getting logged on. I will just quickly introduce myself. My name is Kristy, and I work for ANZUK. We are a recruitment agency that works directly with education only. Sorry, just bear with me. I wasn't on the right screen. Good way to start. Yeah, so pretty much what we do is we resource for educators. We do it in the UK, we do it in Australia, New Zealand, we do the US as well for those Australian passport holders. So yeah, we've got a pretty broad coverage. We also bring teachers in to the UK and Canada from the UK and Australia from Canada, so which is really great. So yeah, thanks everyone for joining us. With us as well, we have Darren, who is the Managing Director of Visa Go. I'll let you introduce yourself, Darren.
Hi everyone, and welcome along to the webinar. Yes, I'm Darren Chatt, and I'm a registered migration agent with the Australian government, and also the director of Visa Go Australia. And we basically help people migrate to Australia, permanent, temporary, and also employee sponsored. And I look forward to answering any questions that you have a bit later on about the process.
Awesome. So just a bit of housekeeping as we get started. We will have options for more questions at the end. So definitely feel free to use that question function that you'll see in GoToWebinar. It's a nice handy one there. I'll take a look at them and we'll try and answer them as we go. Okay. So obviously Darren, he is a registered migration agent. So just thought we'd add in the credentials there. It is really important to always check these things when you are checking and choosing a migration agent, because as with any industry, there are people there who are out there to maybe take advantage. So it's always best to just do your due diligence with these kind of things, as I'm sure you could agree, Darren.
Yes, definitely. And it's just important to make sure that if you're going to deal with someone, just make sure the individual is the licensed migration agent, not the company. So if you check their number, like my number on the screen, it'll link directly to me, not an actual company.
Cool. All right, so I guess what we all want to know, or some of you might have interacted with myself or other members of the ANZUK team previously, so we have a bit of an idea about what you're doing visa-wise. But for some of you that are in attendance, I'm not really sure, so you could be starting from scratch, who knows? So I thought I'd just put this up here just for a bit of an indication of what the most common visas that we'll find educators going on. So yeah, I'll leave Darren to chat a little bit more about those.
Okay, well, as you can see there, the popular one at the moment is the 417. So if you're aged between 18 and 30 and looking to go out to Australia for up to 12 months, you can just go onto the Australian government website, complete the online application, and that's usually processed within 24 hours, as long as you've got no criminal or health issues. So that's the most popular one. That's getting people out to Australia to work on a temporary basis and look at maybe then going on to an employee-sponsored visa whilst you're out there in Australia. The other one is the skilled visas. So that requires a skills assessment, an English language test, and at the moment you probably need state sponsorship as well. So that visa is more for those people who are looking to move out to Australia on a permanent basis. And you've also got the employee sponsored, which is the 482. And that's the one where you would have a company or a school or an organisation who are looking to sponsor a teacher to take up a position within their company where there's a shortage. And that can be up to a 4-year visa, which is temporary. which then can also be transferred over to permanent, or whilst you're in Australia, you could look at the skilled visa whilst you're there as well. So they're the three areas that most people are looking to move out to Australia to teach.
Yeah, brilliant. So obviously, when we set up this webinar, we knew that people had a lot of questions, especially surrounding the restrictions with COVID-19. You know, we do understand that it is a bit hard to get your head around at the moment, especially if you already had your visa and application. So we let the floor be open to everyone. So these are our pick of the bunch, and we'll just go through those now section by section. If you've got, like I said, if you've got any questions, just please put them in the question box in GoToWebinar, and we'll take a look. So, general visas. What are the fees involved with migrating?
Okay, well, I'm assuming this is the skilled visa. So the skilled visa is the permanent visa. So if you're a teacher looking to migrate to Australia on a permanent basis, you would usually have to have a Bachelor of Education, which is a minimum of 4 years, or a 3-year degree and a 12-month PGCE. If you've got those formal qualifications, then you can do a skills assessment, do your English language test, and then see if you actually get the points to make you eligible for a visa. So a skilled visa, the skills assessment, I'll just have a read here, is through AITSL, and that's 860 Australian dollars, so approximately about 480 pounds for your skills assessment. You would have to do an English language test, which is approximately about 160 pounds. And then once you get an invite for the visa, you would have to apply with the Australian government. And the fee for the main applicant is approximately around about £2,000 or $4,045. And then if you have a partner, a de facto, or if you're married, that's about £1,000 or 220 Australian dollars. And then if you do have children, a child is 1,015, which is roughly about £500. And you would also have to do a full medical, which is about 400, which includes a chest x-ray. And also for children, it's about 300, and a criminal check, which is about £45. So as you can see, you could quickly add up. If you're married and have 3 children, you could be looking at anywhere between £6,000 to £6,500 just in government fees. If you're looking at the 482, the employee sponsored, then it's approximately about half of those fees. You're probably looking about $3,000 to $3,500 government fees. And for the working holiday visa, you're probably looking at about £170 to £180 for the 12-month working holiday visa.
Yeah, you can definitely see why people opt to go for the working holiday visa first, to just see whether the move is for them. Yeah, so it can be pretty axy, but you know, with those longer standing visas, you are, I guess, getting more benefit out of it. And if you divide that cost up, you know, by the amount of years you're going to live there, I'm sure you can recoup that money somehow.
Yeah, so it's sort of important just to decide at the start what your intentions are. If you're looking to go out to Australia and just test the water and maybe work for an employer for 3 to 6 months and see what it's like, then the working holiday visa is a fantastic stepping stone visa. And then you may want to look at the permanent visa, or if you've already been to Australia and you don't want to move permanently, you want to go for 2 to 4 years, then you can try and find an employer to sponsor you under the 482. Or if, like a lot of people have been to Australia on a working holiday visa and just come back to the UK and said, wow, we've had enough here, we want to go live in Australia, then obviously the skilled permanent visa is a really good option for you.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, so what is the visa application response time at the moment?
Okay, so for the working holiday visa, we stopped processing these probably about 3 or 4 months ago because we don't know when you'll actually be able to enter Australia. At the moment, only Australian citizens, permanent residents, and those people who are exempt can actually get into Australia. So no tourists or working holiday visa applicants can get in at the moment. So the processing time for that visa was 24 hours, so it's very quick, but the issue is actually trying to get into Australia at the moment. The 482 employee sponsored, we were seeing them being processed within 3 to 4 months before COVID. At the moment, the Australian government is giving priority to occupations on the PM SOL, which we'll run through with that a little bit later on. So that could take a little bit longer. And the skilled visas vary anywhere from a year to 18 months, depending on whether you need state sponsorship or not. And the way the points are structured at the moment, they are quite high. So if you're a teacher looking to migrate permanently to Australia on the skilled independent, you would have to have at least 90 points to receive an invite. So the majority of people are looking at state sponsored. So the processing time for a skilled state sponsored visa would be 14 to 18 months. So it's quite an extensive time to get that visa, mainly because it is a permanent visa, and that does lead on to Australian citizenship. It means that you can always live and work in Australia indefinitely.
Yeah. So it takes a long time for a long visa.
Yes.
Okay, so I've already had a working holiday visa. What can I do now?
Yeah, so looking at that question, I'm assuming the person has got the 12-month working holiday visa. They've gone out to Australia, spent maybe a month, 2 months, haven't worked, and then for whatever reason have had to return to the UK or Ireland or France or wherever you've come from. Unfortunately, once the visa is activated, you have 12 months, and you can go in and out of Australia any time during that 12 months. But once the 12 months is up, unless you've done your 3 months regional work and can apply for the second year working holiday visa, then you can't make that time up. So if you've activated it and come back to Australia and your 12 months has expired, unfortunately, you can't apply for another one. So then what you would have to do if you wanted to go back out, then you'd have to look at an employee sponsored. So maybe Kristy can help you in that area with some employers sponsoring you out. Or if you do have enough points, you can then look for the more permanent visa under the skilled visa category.
Yeah. Oh, sorry guys, if you can see me, I'm going into the dark. Yeah, so just on sponsorship as well, like it is quite tough for schools to sponsor. What we would generally say is if you're a primary teacher going down the early years route, spending a little bit more time in the UK studying, and because early years is a massive shortage in Australia, and those centres are the ones that do tend to sponsor. Obviously, you know, doing your research into that, because sometimes, you know, centres can, you know, take the mickey a little bit with that sort of thing and underpay you because they're doing the sponsorship. So it's really a research piece, but that is going to be your best bet if you're a primary teacher to do it that way. If you're a secondary teacher, it's going to be those STEM subjects that are going to get you there. If you're a PE teacher, I'm really sorry, but the likelihood of you getting a sponsorship through a school is very, very unlikely, just because PE is very popular in Australia. So yeah, just to keep that in mind.
If anyone's got any questions, by all means, just type them in there as well, and then I'm happy to answer those for you if anything does pop up.
Yeah, cool. We've got a couple of questions coming through, and I'll get them divvied up. I'm just seeing if we've got any like general ones. Cool. All right. So when do we think the borders are going to open?
That's the $6 million question. Well, at the moment, like I said earlier, only Australian citizens, permanent residents, people who are married to Australian citizens or in de facto relationships can get exemptions to move in, or you need an exemption. So, you know, you'd have to be a sports star or someone like that to be able to get in. So normal tourists, working holiday visa applicants, and even some 482 employee sponsored applicants are finding it difficult to get into Australia. My personal opinion is I don't really think the borders will open until a vaccine comes on board, because Australia is trying to protect its employment and its economy. So I myself have been trying to actually get back to Australia for the last 3 months as an Australian citizen, and I've had 3 flights cancelled and I'm on my 3rd, and fingers crossed I'm actually leaving on Tuesday. So I haven't packed my bags yet, because when I did that last time, my flight got cancelled within 48 hours. So when will the borders open? Look, the Australian government has said that the capping system will be through at least till April next year, 2021. So I would probably put my money on saying that the borders will be shut to probably this time next year, towards the end next year, and then they'll start drip feeding tourists and maybe students into Australia.
Okay. So not the answer that people probably wanted, but I guess we just need to be realistic with these things.
Yeah, and on that point, I mean, maybe the skilled visa is a good option for some people, because if we've got people in the system and they get their permanent residency visa, then being a PR holder, you can get the exemption and go into Australia. So those people in the system already, may be able to go in 3 months, 6 months, 12 months time.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I guess this question has basically been answered. Late 2021, is potentially.
Yeah, I'd say that's the best. That would be the strongest opinion is will be, late next year sometime.
Yep. Okay, cool.
And just on that point, I mean, the Australian government is still processing visas. We're still getting partner visas being processed and granted. We're also getting parent visas, skilled visas. The Australian government hasn't stopped processing these visas. It just means that the entry date could be an issue. And if any of you actually have got visas already granted, the Australian government has extended the 12-month entry date. So most of you would have a 5-year permanent residency visa if you're a partner or a parent or a skilled visa. So they're extending that out to the validity of the actual 5 years. So you don't have to panic about entering on within the 12 months, which is a requirement once you get those permanent visas.
Yeah, I think that's something that, they have to really think about, because the amount of effort and time and I guess the money as well that goes into those visas is really big.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so what would be the best visa for a teacher to travel that's looking for 1 to 2 years? I mean, the working holiday visa, when it actually opens, would be ideal. And Kristy, as you were saying, employers in Australia, whether they're going to be looking to employ people, I don't think there'll be, I think there'll still be demand in Australia for certain teachers, because, I mean, no one can get in. So if there was a demand before COVID, I think there'll still be a demand there. The issue is going to be the Australian government are making it a little bit more difficult for employers to sponsor people in occupations that aren't on the critical list. And unfortunately, teachers aren't on that list. So maybe if an employer, in a regional area is finding it very difficult to get a teacher, then they may get you through and get you out there, maybe on a 482. But the working holiday is obviously the best visa, and then maybe employee-sponsored 482.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I thought this was quite an interesting question. I'd love to know the answer myself, actually.
Can you travel to Australia for a holiday once your visa application has been submitted? Yes, you can. You can actually have multiple applications running. You could have a working holiday visa that's been granted, and you can have a skilled visa in the background happening. So you could go out to Australia on your 12-month working holiday visa, be out there for 7 or 8, 9 months. And then when the skilled visa is ready to be approved, if you applied offshore, you just zip outside of Australia, get that approved, and then come back in on the skilled visa. So yeah, you can enter Australia on a tourist visa or any other visa whilst another visa is being granted or being processed.
Amazing. All right, so the 417s, which is the bread and butter for a lot of the teachers that head out, a lot of our UK and Irish teachers they go out on that and they work. They work with ANZUK in Melbourne or Sydney or Brisbane or Perth, and getting those short-term contracts or daily supply, which is to fund their travels. So I guess this is going to be similar answers to what we had before. Working holiday visas. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be this time next year. That's when you're looking at. For any temporary visas, will be the same for all those sorts of visas. So yeah, probably September, October 2021.
Well, we've just answered that one. So how about somebody who has their 417 in process already? Have they said anything about those guys, or is it literally just blanket when we're not going to grant them at all?
On these ones, I don't know, because we've actually stopped processing the 417 visas. So I'd be interested to see if anyone out there has actually applied for the 417 recently and had that granted. The issue is going to be that as soon as it's granted, you have to enter within the 12. So I would imagine the Australian government might not be processing those visas, because if they process it, then the 12 months is ticking. So I don't know if the Australian government can be confident that in 12 months' time, the borders will be open.
Yeah.
So, so on that one there, they could be granting the visas, but the issue is then the entry date will become an issue. So if it was me, I would just be hanging off and waiting and applying for your 417 once there's a bit more certainty about when you can actually enter Australia.
Yeah. Okay. And so in terms of, we have another question here that I feel is quite relevant to what we're saying. Has there been many cases of people on working holiday visas being granted exemptions to enter?
So what you're saying is a working holiday visa has got the visa granted, and been able to enter Australia. Yeah, the only way is if they were, say, for example, in a critical needs occupation. So if they're a highly skilled doctor, also mechanical engineers are on the list as well. If you're in an occupation that is in high demand and that can help out in the COVID scenario, then yes, there would be a chance of you actually getting that granted. You'd have to write a submission, and you'd probably have to get a letter from the employer that's going to employ you, and forward that onto the Australian government, and see if they would give you an exemption. I personally haven't seen any, but I know for 482s and other visas that people in those specific occupations are getting exemptions to go in.
Yeah. And on the Home Office website, I've seen that it also says that exemptions will be granted if you're going to meet with a partner. If you can prove evidence that you are, say in a long-term relationship de facto status with that partner, would that be something that could possibly get you an exemption?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of our 309 partner visas that we've actually lodged, you can actually go online and apply for an exemption if you're a partner of an Australian citizen, permanent resident, or eligible New Zealand citizen. Now, the issue there is if you've got a marriage certificate, then it's quite easy. You just attach the marriage certificate. If you've been living with an Australian citizen, say for maybe a year, but you've got no evidence of that, no joint bank account, no joint rental agreement, utility bills in joint names, council tax, then it's going to be difficult to prove that you're in that relationship, and that would be the minimum the Australian government be looking for to give you an exemption. So to answer your question, yes, if you're in a relationship with an Australian citizen or permanent resident, you can get an exemption, but you have to back that up with the evidence of a minimum of 12 months relationship.
Okay, brilliant. Okay. Do you think there'll be any change in the critical skills list? Do you think teachers will be added to it at any stage?
Well, they change the list whenever they need to. So for teachers to come on to the PM SOL, if there's a huge demand in a certain area, then the Australian government reserve the right to change that. I don't think it'll change probably in the next 3 to 4 months until they see what is actually happening in Australia. So yes, it can change, but I don't think that teachers will be on that list for at least 6 months, or if they do go on there at all.
Okay.
And just to give you an understanding,
yep.
I mean, all the occupations that are on the PM SOL, which is the priority migration skilled occupations list, is construction project manager, mechanical engineer, general practitioner, medical officer, psychiatrist, midwives, and all the registered nurses, and developers, software engineers, and maintenance planners. They're the occupations that are getting priority. So if you're on any of those occupations, you will get pushed to the front of the queue for processing your visas and then maybe an exemption.
Amazing. So I did see actually a question from somebody who has actually asked in respect to nurses so if say you are a nurse, would it be a case of then, if say you've already done your working holiday visa, or if you might apply for one, or if you're looking for a skilled visa or something like that, would it be a factor of finding the job or finding somebody that would take you on as a nurse? So I guess similar to schools.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a teacher and say your partner is a nurse, then your partner could be the main applicant for a skilled visa or employee-sponsored visa. Because you're on that the PM SOL, you will get priority processing, and you will get your visa will be processed. So if you're going on the 482, if it was me, I'd be sending your CVs over to Australia, to the area that you want to move to, and trying to get an employer to look at sponsoring you, and then getting a letter of support saying that why you required your skills. If you're a nurse, you would have to have a degree in nursing, and it would also help to have probably a minimum of 3 or 4 years full-time paid employment to back up the application as well. So that's on the 482. And the skilled visa, that would probably take about a year to process a nurse at the moment. It may be quicker because it's on the priority migration list. So you could be looking at, if you've got a registered nurse as a partner, or you are a nurse, you could be out there in maybe 8 to 10 months on a permanent skilled visa. So there are options if you are on those lists.
Yep. Yeah. Fantastic. I think that's fantastic news for though I think I've spoken with or heard about a couple of teacher nurse combos that are going around at the moment. So great news for them. Age limits. Do they look like they're going to extend the age limit on the working holiday visa?
Well, we get asked this question a lot. It's purely down to if the UK gives reciprocal rights to Australians coming into the UK. So if the UK raises the age for Australians to 35, then the Australian government would reciprocate, and then would go to 35. It doesn't look like it's going to happen at the moment, but with COVID, there's a lot of employment, part-time employment. I mean, I'm from Western Australia, so I hear from my wife, who's over here at the moment, and other friends and family, that there's a huge shortage of casual labour, and the work and holiday visa is one of the areas that the Australian government are looking to fill those gaps. So there is a possibility. When it happens, I don't know. But no, at the moment, if you turn 31, then you're unable to apply for the working holiday visa, unfortunately.
And just on that as well, just on the press release that the Home Office did on the 12th about them changing the fees. Well, they're allowing refunds for those people who are unable to reapply. If you are able to reapply, then you can get your fee waived for the next application, which is a step closer to where we want to be.
Yeah, and I think tourists and that, so if you paid for your visa and you haven't been able to enter Australia and it expires, you can go on the Australian government website. There's a refund section on there. You can actually put down your TRN, your transaction reference number of your visa, and you can actually get a refund and then apply for it later on. Yep.
Beautiful. Okay, so you can't get a skilled visa. Can I be a teacher or teaching assistant on a working holiday visa?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the working holiday visa has no restriction on the occupation and the work that you can do. If you work in an occupation that is licensed or registered, then you should really obtain that when you're in Australia. But no, you can work as a teacher or a teaching assistant on the working holiday visa. That's no problems at all. Like I said, though, if you do need registration, then you need to get that and then work if you want to be a teacher.
Yeah.
Good.
And we will do, for all those teachers out there, we will do another separate webinar session on teaching registrations because, of course, classic Australia, they are different in each state. So, yeah. We also do, of course, work with teaching assistants in Melbourne and Sydney with lots of special needs schools. So if you are a special needs teaching assistant, you've got that experience, then we can definitely help you out with that one. Another question, just around age limits. So I've got an understanding that the age limit is actually up to 35 inclusive for Canadians, Irish and French. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Yep. So if you've got a certain passport, then the age is up to 35.
And I would assume that's because it's reciprocal with that country?
Yeah, that's right. So those countries have actually had an agreement with Australia to allow Aussies into those countries up to that age, whereas the UK haven't done that as of yet. So, yeah, so if you've got a French passport or an Irish passport, then up to the age of 35, off you go.
Amazing. Yeah, so we've kind of answered this one already, and Australia is taking applications for skilled visas as well. So it's just obviously the length of time that it's actually going to take to get that visa.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, sponsorship. We briefly touched on it before, of course. Yeah, so if you're on a working holiday visa, can you get sponsored within a school?
If you're going on the 482, the requirement of a 482 is that you must have completed a minimum of 2 years full-time paid employment after qualifying. So this person here, if they completed their qualification and started employment, say in February 2019, they wouldn't be able to be sponsored under the 482 visa, employee-sponsored visa, until February 2021, once they've completed the 2 years full-time employment. So that person there, no, they'd have to get the employment under their belt before they'd be able to get sponsored.
Okay, so yeah, it'll be doing your NQT year and then one subsequent year to be able to be sponsored in a school.
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Is it possible to still be sponsored to go and teach in Queensland and New South Wales? I suppose we touched on this earlier as well. You know, just it's around the school's needs and abilities to be able to actually sponsor for those specified subjects.
Yeah, I think so, and I think schools are going to have to put a good argument up to the Australian government on why they're employing someone from overseas rather than Australian, because I think obviously employment will be going up. But there are areas of Australia where there are shortages of teachers in Queensland and in New South Wales in regional areas. So I couldn't see why not, if the employer put up a good argument, did market labour testing, advertised the position, showed that there was no one in the area that could do that job, then no reason why not they couldn't sponsor someone from the UK, Ireland or overseas. Yep.
And just on that as well, like I think people, if you really want to get to Australia, you need to broaden your horizons and not just want to live on the coast. Teachers in Australia, obviously they're state per state, but they are supposed to do regional service. Teachers will find any way to get out of doing regional service, so they need to fill the gap somehow, and they fill it with the overseas trained teachers. So be that teacher who is open to go and working in a really great rural community, you know, impacting students who, you know, they haven't heard an accent other than on the TV that's not Australian. They probably won't understand you for a while. But, you know, what a great experience, you know, and you've got your foot in the door. And if you plan on staying forever, then what's a couple of years doing rural service to get yourself there?
The other thing too is don't forget, if you work for 12 months in Australia, you can also get bonus points for your skilled visa as well. So that's quite important. And the other thing we're finding too with the skilled visas, the working holiday visas are an important process in maybe getting a skilled visa later on, because a lot of the states are offering state sponsorship to those applicants that are actually in Australia and working in Australia. So if you're in Australia on a 457 working, for example, in Queensland and teaching, you'll have a higher percentage of getting an invite for state sponsored than a teacher sitting in the UK or Ireland or outside of Australia. But you also got to be careful on that front too, on where you go on your working holiday visa, because some states who are looking to sponsor teachers under the skilled visa category will say, well, if you're living and working in South Australia and you've applied to be state sponsored for New South Wales, why are you living and working in South Australia? So if your long-term goal is to get a permanent visa under state sponsored and you're going out on a working holiday visa, you really probably need to think about where you're going to go and what states are sponsoring, so it doesn't harm your application further on down the track.
Okay. Yeah, really, really sound advice. Can I get a job before a visa?
Well, yeah, it's a little bit like the chicken and egg. I mean, you can get a 417 and head out to Australia and teach. But if you're looking to go employee sponsored, a lot of employers at the moment will be saying, well, do you have a visa to actually legally be able to come to Australia and work? And you'll say, well, no, but if you sponsor me, I will. So it's sort of one of those. 417 is a classic one because you can go out without the job. But if you're looking to be employee sponsored, then you obviously have to have the job before you can get the visa. So once you get the job, that leads on to the visa.
Yeah, so if you are looking to if your decision of moving to Australia is based on whether you get a job or whether you apply for the visa is whether you get a job, you are doing it the wrong way around. Schools, because of the length of time it takes to process these visas, the job's going to be well and truly gone by the time you're able to get out there. Schools aren't going to appoint somebody who doesn't have a visa unless they're sponsoring them and they have the assurance that that person can actually get there and will actually get there, because they've got a school to run at the end of the day. And I think that's what we all just need to remember, I think.
Okay.
Partner visas, permanent residency. This is the big one. The guys that are looking to stay for the long haul. Okay, so I have the opportunity to apply for residency/citizenship through de facto. How and what is the process in starting this?
Okay, so if you're married to an Australian and have children, you can actually get a permanent visa from the start, but the application is a two series. It's called, you apply for the temporary and then you get the permanent either 2 years later if you haven't got enough evidence of living together, or you also have to be in a de facto relationship. So the first thing is, if you're married, then it's pretty well straightforward on applying and receiving a partner visa. But if you're only living together, then you've got to have a minimum of 12 months. The other way around it, which we're finding was popular before COVID, is if you don't have the 12 months, because a lot of people live together and you go, well, we don't have a joint bank account. I'm living at their parents' house. Oh, no.
Oh, I think we've lost some Wi-Fi. Okay, cool. So I've got quite a few questions through just in the meantime. Let me just take a quick look through, see if there's anything I can answer. Yeah, so do you need to be teaching for a certain number of years after your PGCE to apply for a visa? It will obviously depend what visa you're applying for. So if you're applying for the 417, it doesn't matter because that's not a job or skill-based visa. But if you are applying for those other ones, it does need to be 2 years or more. Obviously, if you're looking for the 189 visa or the 190, then you're going to need to have lots of experience. Just as Darren pointed out before, the points that you need are quite high for those ones, which is I think at the moment, like they're saying like 90, 95 points. But the guys at Visa Go have a points calculator on their website. When I get to the last slide, it'll have the details as well, where you can go and do like a points, you can go on the points calculator, you can get like a visa assessment done and things like that. So they'll be able to point you in the right direction and tell you. Oh, I can't hear. Oh. Okay. Just check that everything's good. Sorry, bear with us, guys. Technology is always fun, isn't it? All right. Okay, so I'm going to apologies for this, guys. Okay, well, I'm going to assume that people can hear Darren. If somebody wants to just pop in the questions if they sort of can't hear, that would be great because I can't hear him, but I'm going to assume everyone else can. Okay, so Darren, we were sort of partway through saying about de facto and the processes. Oh, no, we can't hear. Thanks, guys, for jumping in there. Who's the IT specialists in here? Have we got any IT teachers in the room? He's going out and coming back in. So we'll see if that makes any difference. Yeah, he was showing on green as his microphone was working, or as unmuted, if you would say. Alas.
Can you hear me now?
Yay!
Fantastic. Apologies, everyone. I knocked the power cord out of my laptop, which was not good. So sorry about that. So to get back to it, yeah, you either have to really be married or live together for a minimum of 12 months and have evidence of actually the de facto relationship. So minimum is 12 months. So you'd have to have a joint bank account, joint rental agreement, council tax in joint names, etc. Before COVID, what we also were doing is those people that didn't have enough de facto, you could actually go to Australia, maybe on a working holiday visa, and register the relationship. So for example, if your partner lived in Queensland, you could register the relationship. And then that means that the 12 months de facto is cut down to 3 to 6 months. So it means you don't have to have so much de facto. But that was good before COVID because we could get people into Australia to lodge a partner visa onshore, but at the moment we can't. So we're sort of stuck with trying to get people to have the 12 months de facto to lodge that particular visa.
Okay, cool.
And the de facto partnership and the marriage partnership visas are taking in the UK roughly about 14 to 18 months at the moment, which is another reason why a lot of people are looking to go to Australia and lodge the visa onshore. Because once you lodge the visa onshore and your existing visa that you have, either a 3-month tourist visa or a working holiday visa, you go on to what's called a bridging visa until a decision is made on the partner visa. And once your existing visa expires, you will get full work rights. So that's another way of handling a partner visa if you don't have the time to wait outside of Australia for that visa.
Yeah, I suppose that is a good route if you don't want to wait those really extensive times to actually get the visa processed. On the partnership visa still, how long after getting into Australia on a working holiday visa should you apply?
Well, we usually leave it for at least probably a month, maybe 2 months. If we're doing the application, we would prepare the application so it's decision ready to submit it with the Australian government. But don't forget, it's a little bit tricky because you're supposed to be going to Australia to travel around and work and have a good time and see Australia, not to lodge a partnership visa. So it's not advisable going to Australia with a visa application in your suitcase going in, because immigration are going to be a little bit strange if you do that. So we usually leave it for a month or two and lodge it. It just means then that way you've been to Australia, you've seen what it's got to offer, you're there with your Australian partner and you're really looking to change your mind and apply for the partner visa.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I don't know if you saw as well, Darren, I shot over a question to you. So regarding the skilled visa, you've got the bachelor degree, you've got PGCE, you're a qualified teacher, all that sort of thing. Oh.
Sorry, that was my mobile going. Apologies for that.
That's all good. So you've got the PGCE, you've done IELTS, you've got all of everything that's sort of specified there. Would you say that that's enough to qualify for the skilled visa?
So the person's done their skills assessment with AITSL?
They haven't mentioned that there.
Okay, well let's run through it. I mean, if you're going to apply for a skilled visa, a skilled independent 189, the last round of invites that teachers received, they had to have at least 90 to 95 points. So if you do the points test and you've got 95 points, then you can do an expression of interest with the Australian government for a skilled independent visa. That means you'd have to have high-level English. You have to get 20 points for English. You'd probably have to be under 33 years of age to get maximum points for age, which is 30. Probably have 5 years work experience as a teacher. If you're single, you get bonus points. So if you want to go onto our website, we've got a free points calculator. It tells you how many points you have. If you don't have the 90, 95 points, then you're going to have to look at a state-sponsored skilled visa, which is the 190 or the 491. Then you only need 65 points. So the majority of you should be able to get the 65 points, but then the state governments may have extra requirements over and above what the Australian government do. So for example, New South Wales might say, well, look, we need secondary school teachers, but they need to have specialisation, say as a maths teacher or teacher second language, something along those lines. So the majority of you will probably look at a skilled sponsored state visa, where the points are a little bit lower. So whether you meet the points is hard to say off the cusp unless you do the points calculator, or we also do consultations for 30 minutes for £60, and then we run through your CV, your qualifications, your points, your options, etc., which is often a good way to find out whether you're eligible and how.
Yeah, because that's the thing as well, like, you know, you look at so many things on the internet, but what are you actually looking at? And there's just so much information on there that it's very hard to decipher at the best of times.
Yeah, we can run through everything with you, and then, you know, at the end of the consultation, you'll know whether you are or eligible or not, and what points you have, and what areas of Australia you can actually apply and move to.
Amazing. Yep, so extending on the 190s and 189s, they are, aren't they, for an extra 12 months?
Yeah, they are. So if you go onto our website, VisaGo Australia, visa-go.com, and click on the skilled visas, there's an actual letter from the Australian government that you can actually print off our website. So when you're travelling to Australia, you carry that letter, and that lets the airport and immigration know that you've got a permanent resident visa, and the Australian government are extending the entry date for you.
Yeah, very good. I've got a couple of people that theirs expires sort of in 2021, I think, that are a little bit nervous, but that will alleviate that pressure. So that's quite good.
Right.
So yeah, let's check out if there's any other questions that we can answer. So secondary teachers, no, so secondary teachers are not on the critical skills list. That's correct, isn't it?
Yeah, no teachers are actually on the list, unfortunately.
Yeah, okay. That is a shame. We'd love to get our teachers over there. Brilliant. So I think that we've covered off most of the visa questions. Just had like a question as well, just saying, you know, what is the demand for teachers, you know, supply teachers in Australia at the moment? The demand's still there, still same as usual. Schools are still in, and you know, kids are still there to be taught, and teachers still need to go off sick, and especially now more than ever, if they need to go off and self-isolate, or if they've got a positive test or something like that. The demand's still there. It's, you know, there is always I guess a safety first kind of thing. They prefer, that's why they come to places like ANZUK, because, you know, we'll have, you know, this group of teachers that they know, and they can request those teachers specifically, and then they know the faces that are walking through the door. You know, there's lots of safeguards put in place to ensure that that risk assessments are done. Teachers, you know, fully understand their responsibilities in this current climate, and schools understand in the same way. So the demand is still there for supply teachers, as there always has been. But yeah, is there anything else that you wanted to sort of touch on in regards to visas?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think Australia is obviously cut back the skilled visas in the next financial year, but there's always going to be a demand. And Australia has always been built on migration, so I don't see that ever stopping. So if you've been to Australia, or you're looking to go there just to test it and try it out, by all means, I would highly recommend just getting the 12-month working holiday visa and checking it out and just seeing what Australia is all about. I'm sure you'll love it. And hopefully those visas will be available, you know, later on next year. If you've already decided you want to live in Australia, it's still open. It's obviously a lot more harder to get in, or more difficult than it was, you know, 6-12 months ago. But the doors aren't completely shut. So if you're looking to migrate, you've really got to say, well, look, you know, I'm prepared to spend, you know, maybe £2,000 or £3,000 get my application to the stage where I can lodge an expression of interest. So that's doing your skills assessment, your English language test, lodge an expression of interest, sit in the pool. So when the state governments do open up and they're looking for teachers, you're already in the system. And you can sit in that system for up to 2 years. So if you've made your mind up, you want to go to Australia and you've got £2,000 or £3,000 spare, then that's probably what you need to do, because if you don't and you sit back and think about it, all those people in the system will be at the front of the queue. So hopefully if you are looking to go to Australia, it's still positive, it's still good, and I think there's still a lot of opportunities. And moving forward in Australia, which has had hardly any COVID, I think it's a very vibrant place to be, especially for employment. So I hope if you are looking to do it, that you do move forward and this hasn't blunted your enthusiasm, because I'm sure you'll love it once you get out there.
Anything that's easy or too easy isn't worth doing, right?
Exactly. So my point of advice is, if you're applying for a skilled visa for £160, why don't you just go do the IELTS English exam, get that out of the way, and see if you get the maximum superior points, which is 20. At least then you've got that out of the way and you know you've got maximum points for that, and then you can work on the rest. But that would be the cheapest way to start a skilled visa application.
Yeah. And I've just had one last minute question come through as well. So if you are out in Oz on the working holiday visa, can you apply whilst out there for a skilled?
Yes, most definitely.
Yeah, cool.
You can. So, you can do your English test in Australia, you can do your skills assessment in Australia or here. What I'd probably suggest to do is, before you go, shooting off to Australia, is to do the points test and speak to a registered migration agent, probably pay for a consultation. So firstly, you are eligible, what your points are and what your options are before you actually go. Because it'd be also good to take all your references and your legal paperwork, your transcripts of your degrees, your pay slips, your tax returns. So you don't want to be in Australia and not have access to all those documents. Okay?
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Nothing worse than being in another country and not having what you need, like I did with my birth certificate when I moved over here. So that was a really nervous time having that in the post, but
yeah.
So don't do what I did. But yeah, cool. So if you want to get in contact with the guys at Visa Go, details are on here. I'll share this webinar with everyone, so you'll have the recording. Also share the slides as well, just so that you guys can see the questions as well. And yeah, so they do the free visa assessments online. Just go to their website, and they're on Facebook and Twitter as well. And then for us, we're on all the platforms. Actually, I don't think we're on Twitter. But yeah, we've got an Instagram that goes for days, and we're always on Facebook. So we've got a really good Educators Moving to Australia Facebook group, and it's a really good resource for everyone to chat and ask questions that are in the same situation as you. So I'll be in contact with everyone, and thanks, Darren, so much for joining us. It was really great to have you.
No worries, Kristy. Thanks for inviting me, and thank you for everyone attending. And if you do need any help, by all means, just get in contact.
Awesome. All right. Well, have a good evening, everyone. Keep warm. It's getting chilly out there. And I'll speak to you all soon.
Okay. Bye, everyone.